So one other issue about this Israeli-Palestinian crisis that I think is very important, a lot of times people ask, hey, guys, what's Israel supposed to do? Now, you say that Israel shouldn't bomb a densely populated Gaza Strip where you're killing civilians. Reports are 77 to 80% of the people killed in the bombing, there's been 190 people killed on the Palestinian side, are civilians. 80% civilian death rate is pretty high. It's hard to say, hey, a little collateral damage, when in fact it's not collateral, it's the main damage that's being done. So on the other hand, people will say, what am I supposed to do? They're firing rockets into Israel. What, do you just want me to sit there and take it and do nothing? Would you not defend yourself? Okay, so that's an important and interesting question, and it has to be addressed. So let me tell you the two things that I would do. First of all, the main answer to this is stop the occupation. Now, if you occupy somebody for 47 years, I don't think there's really any people on the planet that wouldn't fight back. Now, anytime, I don't suggest that they do it violently. I think that's insane. I think it's counterproductive. I think it's immoral, etc. I think they should do it just like Gandhi did it, just like Nelson Mandela did it, like Martin Luther King did it here in the United States. It's more effective, it's more moral, it's the right approach, right? But at the same time, you're surprised that after 47 years of occupation, people fight back? Would Americans not fight back if we were occupied, you name it, by Mexico, by Iran? My guess is that we would do a lot of violence to fight back, right? And so you can apply that almost anywhere. It doesn't justify the violence, but it also doesn't justify your occupation. So what are you supposed to do? Not occupy them. Now you say, well, that's not that easy. Actually, it isn't that hard either. First of all, there's a negotiated solution already that if Israel wanted, they could accept immediately. First of all, if they wanted the 1967 borders, they could do that tomorrow, right? But there's actually even a better deal for Israel that the Palestinians would almost certainly accept tomorrow as well, where Israel keeps a larger percentage of the West Bank, but there's a road that goes between the West Bank and Gaza Strip, and the right of return for the Palestinians is incredibly limited to really like about 3 generations before this one, right? So there's already a deal that can be made. Israel chooses not to make that deal. You got to remember something. Israel, in this case, is much stronger than Palestine. So it's incumbent upon Israel, especially since they're the ones occupying them, to get to the deal, to get to the negotiating table and to do that deal, right? Now, the reason they don't do that deal is because they're stronger and they think, maybe I can get more.
Yeah.
You have to keep it real. If you think that's not the case, you're living in fantasy land where, only your side is holy and has great purposes, but the other side is super evil and they're all terrorists and all they understand is violence. Nonsense. Both sides do tremendous violence. Both sides are wrong in different ways, and you're the occupier. You got to stop it. That's point one.
I think that that's something that people will spin as a huge concession by the Israelis and not a concession by the Palestinians, even though it really is, right? And I mean, correct me on this if I'm wrong, but I don't think that Benjamin Netanyahu genuinely wants a two-state solution. I think that the current state that Israel is in now and this current conflict is actually great for him and great for re-election.
So it's just like the right wing here in the United States of America. Does Dick Cheney want peace? Of course not. He lives and breathes war. That's his MO. Now, in his own mind, he thinks that it's better for America. I genuinely believe that. Maybe I'm being naive about that. But he's not for peace. He's for going back into Iraq and occupying Iraq. We're against the occupation of Iraq when the U.S. does it. We're against the occupation of Palestine when Israel does it. Now, we're against the right-wing government in the U.S. We're against the right-wing government in Israel. The right-wing government in Israel gets elected when there is fear, when there's a climate of aggression and hostility. They're the more hostile and aggressive party. So they come out and they go, we will protect you. Just put us back in power and don't worry about those terrible, terrible Palestinians. I'm going to bomb them all day and all night. Okay? So if we had peace, Netanyahu is less likely to win. You think he doesn't know that? I mean, how unbelievably naive are you? And besides which, look, the proof is in the actions that he takes. He's like, we have a peace deal. We need at least sit down at the table if we stop building settlements. No, build more settlements. Take more land. Take more Palestinian land. You think he doesn't know that that aggravates the situation? You think that's an accident? It's not an accident. It's on purpose. He wants to aggravate the situation, not for the benefit of Israel, for the benefit of him and his party. That's how right-wingers win in all these countries, with more war, more hostility. Okay, now, point number 2 is, You say, okay, look, Cenk, long-term answer is stop the occupation. And some of you might, I hope a lot of you agree with that. Some of you might disagree. But what am I supposed to do in the short term, right? They're firing rockets. Am I just supposed to sit there and take it? No, I understand. Of course, you want to defend yourself. And that's perfectly natural too, right? Of course, right? So here's how I would do it. And this people will consider controversial, but it's the same exact solution I have for the Americans. Special forces. It's not a pretty solution. There are no pretty solutions. Rockets are being fired, okay? But when Israel launches a bomb, it hits a neighborhood and it devastates it. I mean, we did a story yesterday about how they hit a mosque and killed 18 people. They hit an area where people were being treated, people who were injured, people who were in a hospital, killed, right? And it happens over 80% of the people killed are civilians, right? So I would land special forces, as for example, the US did when we went to go get Osama bin Laden. Now, everybody's going to say, but wait a minute, that endangers my troops more. Yes, it does. Again, no pretty answers here, okay? But as a US citizen, my special forces, Navy SEAL Team 6, etc., signed up for a tough job, and I would send them on that job over and over again. Why? Because it protects the country. When you land the special forces, and I know people are going to be bitter at that, and special forces aren't going to be perfectly clean either, and they will have collateral damage as well. But they're not going to have 80% collateral damage as is happening in the Gaza Strip right now. So when you land the special forces, more often than not, you will not accidentally obliterate the family next door and the family half a block away. You're going to get a specific person. And when you do, you say, all right, this guy, I can show you why this guy in Hamas is a really bad guy. Or in our case, this guy in Al-Qaeda or the Taliban is a really bad guy. I sent my guys who are specially trained for this to land and to eliminate that threat so he stops firing the goddamn rockets, okay? Now, if you say, no, I don't want to endanger my troops, I would rather kill hundreds of their civilians.
That's just going to amplify the situation.
Okay, two things about that. One, you're making a moral choice where you say, I would rather kill their civilians. Again, whether it's the US or Israel, when we do the drone strikes, right? I would rather kill their civilians at great rates than endanger my special forces. And number two is the point that Anna just made, which is that it doesn't make us any safer. The reason I'm sending the special forces is if after a long period of time, you say, look at all these guys I lost to make sure that innocents on your side didn't die, it does have an effect. It has an effect on people getting that we're the good guys. Right now, not a lot of people in the Middle East convinced that the US are the good guys or Israel's the good guys. Why? We keep bombing them.
So I'm a little pessimistic about your strategy for a number of different reasons. First of all, the Palestinians obviously and justifiably do not trust the Israelis, right? So if you're going to send special forces and they're going to be on the ground, they're going to perceive that as an occupation. They're going to perceive
they're already occupied.
I know they're already occupied, but I think that they're going to see that as amplifying the war, right?
They are, and that's a great point, Anna. And I want everybody to be realistic about this option. It's not ground troops, it's special forces, okay? If you roll in 10,000, right now I think Israel has about 11,000 troops on the border ready to go. That's a whole different thing. I wouldn't want that for Israel, as I wouldn't want it for America, because you're just going to get entangled there, and it's going to make the situation worse. Now, do you think that the Palestinians are happy when Israeli defense forces drop in as I'm proposing? No, they're not going to be happy about that at all. But if you actually target the right people, well, sad day for you. Well, then you shouldn't have fired the rockets, right? And in reality, what will happen is that you will get the guys that you're targeting far more often than you are under this policy. It's not like the Palestinians are going to greet you as liberators, but it's a more just policy.
And so I kind of think of this as us going into Afghanistan or Iraq and going after top members of a terrorist group, right? We go in, we take out a top guy, and then someone else comes in and takes the role of that individual that we just took out. So how would the situation with Hamas be different?
So another great question, Anna, but so that's why I mentioned the more important point first, which is the long-term solution. Until you fix the underlying problem, let me ask the supporters of Israel in terms of they're never wrong. And you think that doesn't exist? That's because maybe you don't live in America, okay? But in America, a lot of people literally believe Israel can do no wrong. It doesn't matter if their government is left-wing, they're centrist, or right-wing. Whatever Israel does is by definition correct, which is insanity, right? Let me ask those people, okay, so you think, what's your ideal solution? That the Palestinians just accept that they're occupied and live under occupation indefinitely? I mean, do you really? I guess some do. I saw Huckabee on Fox News the other day saying they should just understand there's no two states. That's Judea and Samaria, and Israel owns it. And it's almost like the beginning of Gladiator. People should know when they're conquered, right?
It's amazing.
Okay, but you can think that, but it's not realistic. At some point, and probably throughout, as is happening, they will fight back. And then you'll call them terrorists, etc., but it won't help. So you got to do the long-term solution. Otherwise, you're right, the next leader of Hamas is going to come. But in the short term, you can't just sit there and get bombed and not have any reaction. Because if you think that won't encourage them to bomb you more, that's also crazy talk. Of course it will.
Well, this was a great discussion with great possible solutions to the situation. It's unlikely to happen. So once this story dies down a little bit, expect it to resurface again in the coming year.
Exactly.